Hi, my name's Rupert, and today I'm going to talk about how to spot a phishing email. So phishing emails have been around for a long time, or as long as email's been around, basically. The evolution of them, they started with broadcast phishing emails, example being a Nigerian prince who's got lots of money tied up and he just needs your bank account details in order to be able to release it, and of course he's going to pay you handsomely for helping him out. Spear phishing's been around a little bit more recently, and it's targeted, so emails composed or directed at a specific individual or individuals within a company, such as procurement manager or competitors if you are interested in getting information about a specific company. Whaling's even more frequent these days. Hackers know that the people within businesses that are capable of making decisions, have the biggest impact, are likely to be your senior executives, your managing directors, financial directors, CEOs or C-suite members from an American company. So it's changed a lot over the time. Not only has the terminology we use changed, but the type of emails that we're seeing from a phishing point of view have changed quite significantly as well. So there's three primary purposes of phishing emails. The first one's really obvious: financial gain. Hackers are interested in getting into accounts, either to make an immediate transfer, to collect credentials, collect account information as part of a bigger phishing campaign, and just be aware that they're also interested in the long-term view as well. Not always are you instantly going to be aware that somebody's got into your account. So in the UK, there was this particular PayPal scam reported over 1,000 times within 24 hours to Action Fraud, the UK's cyber security arm of the government, and in turn PayPal got it shut down fairly quickly. In this particular case, the link was asking you to log into your PayPal account and confirm that your card details are up to date so that you can use them in the future. And it's just one of many examples. A slightly less obvious one might be you get a payment decline notification from an online service such as Netflix, for example, asking you to log in and update your payment details. So they're not actually saying the old one's expired, but there's been a problem with your card, so obviously you want to jump on that straight away before your access gets blocked. Other examples of phishing emails. Phishing emails have long been used for kind of virus, or these days ransomware distribution. In the old days it would have been that Word document attachment that you've been told time and time again, don't click on attachments from strangers. But as people's use of email, legitimate use of email changes, so has the approach used by threat actors. So DocuSign is one of the best known e-signing services in the world. It's not at all uncommon in business these days to get a link through to a website to go and click on a document and sign it, review it, especially if you're in the middle of a transaction. So the actual fraudulent or harmful message might not be sent to you anymore. It might be that you're sent a link to it. Other examples are the common file sharing services. In this case we've used Dropbox, but again, WeTransfer, Dropbox, Google Docs, Google Drive, anything like that. Even the Microsoft Office platforms are very much vulnerable to this. And we're seeing even more advanced techniques. The initial document that you're sent a link to doesn't actually contain anything wrong with it, but within that there's another link to another document, and all this sort of thing is designed to make automated kind of virus filtering and so on harder and harder and harder to detect. So very much some advanced solutions in place. Ultimately, we don't want the payload, we don't want the end product downloaded to your computer, and we certainly don't want it double clicked on, because that's at the point at which the ransomware is going to spread. So as always, the message remains the same: be very cautious about what you download, what you click on from anybody that you don't know. Phishing is also a term used for pure information gathering. There's nothing malicious, they're not sending you anything. All they're trying to do is effectively dupe you into providing login details. Click here to log into this website. Your password needs updating. Log in here. Your account's been blocked. Can you please click here to review your recent sign-in activity? Now, again, this can be made to look very legitimate, but it's really important that your credentials are only actually input effectively on your terms when you know that there's something that you need to do. And in most environments, you shouldn't be clicking on links in emails that are then immediately prompting you to log in. There are exceptions. If you've used an email security service, for example, if you're clicking on a link on a computer that you're not normally logged into, then you might well be prompted for a legitimate password by a legitimate request. and that's where it gets really tricky for people. But always use extreme caution anytime you're asked for your credentials. Are you actually logging into the website, or are you actually giving your Microsoft or your Facebook password to threat actors, to hackers that are going to use it immediately or at some point in the long term to gain access to that account? A statistic that's bandied about in the security industry a lot is that 91% of successful data breaches start with a spear phishing attack. That means 91% of hacks on computer networks, as you think of it, along the line, they started off with somebody clicking on an email, typing in some credentials, or downloading some software that they shouldn't have done. It's that much of an issue for people. So I've already covered some examples of phishing emails. Here's a couple more. We've got an email from Amazon saying that there was a strange login to your account. Click here on the link to check what activity's been on your account. Google, haven't seen you in a little while. Please confirm your account's still active and that you still need it. No problem at all. PayPal, I mentioned earlier on. In this one, your PayPal account's been locked and you have to solve the problem within 24 hours. Interesting, they're now introducing a time-based element here, requiring effectively immediate action, or there'll be longer-term consequences. And from Microsoft, your account's password's expired. If you still use Microsoft, and hey, who doesn't, you're going to need to click in here, follow some instructions. This one always makes me smile. They even give you your username, make it as easy for you as possible. They've got the Microsoft logo there. It looks really good initially, but the domain at the top that it's come from isn't quite right. And Microsoft don't typically send out emails in quite this manner. But it can be very convincing. It's easy to do. All of these examples have got things in place. I mean, who amongst us doesn't have a password, an account with Microsoft, with PayPal, with Google, or with Amazon? And that alone adds a lot of credibility to the messages. There's also an urgency to these. They're all requiring action on your part, either to protect you, to get you back into a service, to prevent your Amazon deliveries from not turning up, or just simply to make sure that your password and your account are up to date. So that's the sort of thing to watch for. I've got another example here on a much smaller scale. So this is an example of CEO fraud. There is another video in this series specifically discussing CEO fraud, but just briefly, think of it as, rather than broadcasts where somebody's pretending to be from Microsoft, this is somebody that actually knows more about our company. So at NetPrimate, Steve Cole's our managing director, and this is an email that's been sent into our system specifically designed to look like it's from Steve requesting a transaction. So there's a few key things here, and again, they relate to what we saw on the previous slide. There's an urgent request to make a financial transfer. There's a justification to it as well. We're going to miss out on this order if we don't get it done immediately. There's even some human element as well. Can you bypass the procedure and I'll sort it all out when I'm back in the office? There's an unusual signature. I mentioned signatures because they're really, really important. If you know what signatures are supposed to look like, if there's a procedure in place to make sure that any unusuals or any signature changes are well communicated within a company, signatures can be a real sticking point, but they're not infallible. So that's just one example of a CEO fraud email. Worth spotting out domain mimicking at this point. So you see our address at the top, PRIRNATES is not a legitimate domain name. It's not an email address that Steve would ever use from. And what we've done there is we've made the R and the N, put them really close together. It looks just like an M on our legitimate domain name. So you've got to be really, really careful. We've seen examples of this domain mimicking kind of in real life. Domains are so cheap and easy to register. So everything that you do, you've got to scrutinize from a phishing point of view. So I already discussed convincing you to take action. Company signatures aren't infallible. If I get in touch with a sales contact of the company, it's really easy to copy and paste their signature and update it to use the boss's name instead. But at the same time, they add a level of protection. Display names can be forged, as you saw in that previous email from Steve. Do keep an eye out for spelling mistakes and format changes and so on. Email addresses, you often see that full email addresses aren't visible, especially if you're checking your email on a mobile device like lots of us do these days. Anything that comes in with an urgent element to it increases the likelihood of you're going to focus on the request and overlook the accuracy of the email, especially if there's anything that's going to have a big impact if it doesn't get done. Something's not going to get shipped, your account's going to get locked out, that sort of thing. Anytime you're asked to bypass procedure, think about it. It's your job on the line potentially, and I'd strongly recommend you follow the procedure always. And the boss isn't going to be upset if you phone them up and just double check that they're actually that the request did come from them. And as I mentioned earlier, any time that you need to log in, especially if normally within the process of sending or receiving links, you don't get asked to log in to services from if your colleagues are sending you documents, for example. So there are always solutions to phishing emails. There's a technical element, and as an MSP, an IT company, NetPrimates do everything we can to protect phishing emails from ever reaching our clients' mailboxes in the first place. Making sure that your domain's set up properly, using modern email security. You've got threat protection, link protection. We're limiting where you can even access your mailbox from and monitoring the usage. We also put end user notifications up. So for example, this is an email that I forwarded into our system from a personal email address, and because our system noted that there was an inbound email from Rupert Walmsley, it flagged it with that red message across the top and then put the rest of the message beneath it. So we can do a lot with automated technical controls. At the same time, when it comes to phishing, there's absolutely a human element. It's really important to, from a training point of view, user awareness, distribute this video amongst your team, have conversations with your team and so on. From a policies point of view, it's important to have procurement and communication policies internally within a team to know how the financial director or the managing director would ever ask you to make a payment or make a transaction. And to back that up with a culture that there's no blame or no fault for reporting it. And that goes along for the authorization as well. If the boss doesn't ask you in the right way, following the right procedure, then the answer should be no, and the boss should accept that to protect themselves as well in the business. So the purpose of these videos is to encourage people to take action. First and foremost, it's really important to implement and pay attention to security warnings, whether it's phishing related or anything else to do with cybersecurity. I mentioned earlier the importance of security awareness training. Discuss phishing. Internally, do your team know what legitimate internal email looks like? Does it have the signature or doesn't it? What is and isn't acceptable to be asked via email? What do you still need paper forms for, or to get a personal request or multiple signatures, for example? And how do you go about reporting a suspicious email and verifying legitimate requests in the organisation? It's really a good idea to consider implementing routine phishing testing. So there are services out there that will automatically, at random times of the day and night, send emails once a month, once a quarter even, to your entire team and see who clicks on it. Not from a getting people in trouble perspective, but from a training point of view. That's the sort of service we offer our clients as well. Implement procurement processes and stick to them. I touched on that one earlier, and again, no fault blame if you stick to the process. If the business loses out because something went wrong but the process was followed, at least you've learned how to improve the process from it. It's when people ignore the process and just do it as a favour because they've got a request that's come in, that's when the problems really start to appear. So really hope you found this video useful. If you have, please do share it with anyone else that you think may benefit. You can subscribe or visit the site below to receive notifications when we post new videos on the subject of tips and cybersecurity. Thanks very much for watching, and look forward to seeing you again.